Hello and welcome to another episode of the Zero Five Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Abernathy. And if I seem a little more chipper than usual today, guess what? It's range day. Who doesn't get excited to go to the range? I'm going to be going to the range this afternoon with one of my team members. We're going to be shooting our qualification process. I'm actually going to take some video while we're out there and try and post a video of how our qualification process works on social media and on Substack. I've actually gotten a lot of questions on how we do our qualification process. I wrote an article on it called Firearms Qualification for Safety Team Members. You can check it out on Substack. But in today's episode, after my last episode, I got an interesting question about recruiting and all that stuff. That's fine and dandy, but what do you do if your church won't pay for training or won't give you any funding whatsoever? That's actually a really, really good question because it's a really common issue with safety ministries. And so I actually want to dedicate an entire podcast to this. What do you do if your church, for whatever reason, refuses to back your safety ministry financially? This is usually caused by a couple of things. One, it could be a funding issue. The church is already spread thin as it is. Churches have a lot of expenditures, and to be completely reliant on the giving, the tithes and the offerings of your congregation, it's not super predictable income. And like I said, churches have a lot of expenditures. They have staff. They got to pay the pastor. They've got to pay whatever paid staff that they're going to have, depending on the size of the church. Churches have a lot of facilities fees. People want to go to a church that's clean, that's put together, that the AC works, the heat works, the roof doesn't leak, the electronics work. People want those things. They want those comforts, and so churches have to pay for all that. All of that takes money. They have to pay for their ministries. So missions, worship team, youth, kids, all of those things draw funds from the tithes and offerings given by the church members and visitors. To add an additional expense to that, for some churches, it can be a stretch, and it's very, very difficult for them to manage that. So that's usually the primary reason why it's tough to get funding for not just a safety ministry, a new ministry in general. And I get that. I understand that. And it was a long time before we got actual funding for our ministry. And another reason really is the safety ministry may have the wrong image. If the people that are part of that ministry, or the people that are leading that ministry, have put forth this image of we are security and we are here to stop the wrong people from coming in here. That's not an image that is going to be looked at favorably by church leaders. I've said it a million times. Church leaders speak ministry, not security. Church safety team leaders and team members are going to speak security. You have to be able to speak both languages. And so if you have always pitched the security side of what you're doing, that's going to fall on deaf ears. It's just going to happen because what pastors and church leaders and ministry leaders are worried about is they want to get the gospel out. Whatever that takes, whether it's through music, whether it's through youth ministry, that's what ministry is it is getting the good news out to the masses. If you're not pitching safety as a means of supporting the church ministry, supporting the ability to preach the good news, to preach the gospel, or as a means to preach the gospel, it's going to be very, very difficult to get funding. And so you need to pitch your safety ministry as a means of supporting and furthering ministry. So general funding, and then it's been pitched the wrong way. When we first started our team, it was very security minded. Our mindset was guard the pastor first, guard the worship center, and then we'll figure everything else out. We've since adjusted, and I'll talk about security postures another time and how that has adjusted over time. But we really didn't start growing and furthering as a team until we started pushing the ministry value of what we were doing. And once we started pushing the ministry value of what we were doing, the church leaders started to come around a little bit. So it started with buying cameras and upgrading facility security type things, because that's a facilities expenditure. It's not tied specifically to security, but it does help give people a sense of comfort. Another issue that pastors have with security is not a lot of pastors are going to be pro having armed people within their congregation. This really boils down to where your church is at. There are some states that the general mentality is anti-gun. It's a fact. And if you go to a church in one of those states or one of those areas, there's a good chance that your pastor is going to be a bit anti-gun or just not super in favor of guns. And if that's the case, pitching security and pitching armed security, you're already facing a slippery uphill battle. And so again, go back to pitching it as a ministry, and that safety is the byproduct of that ministry. Another reason why funding lacks for safety ministries is the training necessary to be a good, well-functioning safety ministry. It's expensive. It really is. Especially firearms training, tactics training, all that stuff can get very, very expensive. On top of that, it's just an unfortunate fact that when a new industry comes around, and I'm gonna use church safety as an industry because that's what it has become over the last 4 years. When a new ministry comes around, anybody and everybody that has any little inkling in that industry is going to jump all over it and try to make a buck. And it's, as a safety team leader, it's frustrating when I see people that really don't know how to be instructors or trainers pitching themselves as instructors and trainers. They have no actual instructing background. They have no actual training background, but they pitch themselves as experts because of a prior resume. Resume is good. Experience is good. But you can have one of the best shooters in the world, but can't teach a lick. You can have one of the best medics in the world, but does not understand how to build skills in other people. You can have former SEAL Team 6 CAG guys, and they just don't understand how to tie ministry with security. And the problem is people see this industry as a potential gold mine, and they want to charge top dollar, and that makes training very inaccessible for church ministries that are already struggling to get funding anyways. So when you go to your church leadership and you say, hey, I need $500 to get 10 people CPR certified, and they're going to ask, well, who's instructing you? If they're not instructed with a ministry background, again, this goes back to the ministry. If they're just a CPR instructor and they're not teaching you not only how to do CPR, but how to manage the congregation in the midst of this situation, you're not getting your bang for your buck for what exactly you're trying to train for. Learning CPR, it's fantastic. You should learn CPR. But you also need to learn how to manage CPR within the setting of the church. CPR as a skill is one thing. Managing the scene to protect the congregation is a totally different mentality. It's a totally different skill set. And so you need to be able to show your church leadership that we're getting this training, we're getting this instruction, and this is how it all ties into the church and furthering the church ministry. That's what you have to pitch to get this funding. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of good instructors out there that teach specific to church safety ministry. They teach the skill sets, they teach the tactics. They don't teach specifically how it works with regards to ministry. So look for that in your instructors. But those are barriers to getting funding. I want to give you some solutions. So first off, as I've been talking about for most of this, is you need to push this as a ministry. When you push safety as a ministry, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, church leaders they will back a ministry. They won't necessarily back security. When you talk to them about, we need these things, we need money for these things, don't just say why we need them from a security perspective. Say why we need them from a ministry perspective. Why do we need to have automatic locking doors? Well, from a security perspective, I'm going to say, well, that way if we have to quickly lock the doors to keep a bad person out, we're able to do that. That's a security concept. My pastor's not going to understand that, right? But if I say we need these quick locking doors because if somebody's trying to get in and interrupt the worship, we need to create that barrier so worship can continue without the interruption. You see how I wordsmithed that a little bit? It's the same point, but I'm speaking from a ministry perspective instead of a security perspective. If we have protesters, look at Minneapolis. If we have protesters and we spot them in the parking lot making their way in, if we can lock these doors quickly, that prevents or at least minimizes disturbance to our church, to our congregation during worship or during Bible study. And then it buys us time to manage that. So whenever we change services or hopefully that situation is handled, or we're able to kind of keep the worship service going to avoid intermixing a security issue with our congregation. So that's one way of pushing that. Why do we need cameras? Well, you can push this one as a liability thing all day. And this is actually how I was able to get additional cameras for our church. Is you have adults interacting with children. And the unfortunate reality is there are lots of incidents of grooming and child exploitation and things like that. In fact, that happens more often in churches than actual shootings. So if you're not thinking about that, that's an issue that needs to cross your brain and an issue you need to plan for. That's a whole other topic. But if I can tell my church leaders, listen, we are doing this to make sure, for the safety of our children, to make sure that our adults are behaving on the up and up. I don't need to monitor them constantly, but if I have a parent that comes in and says that this adult was treating their child a certain way, I can go back in the footage and I can look at it and make a determination. Are they filing a legitimate complaint, and is this something we need to handle immediately? Or is there really nothing going on, just the parent's upset for whatever reason, at which point we need to sit down with the parent and have a talk. But you see how requesting funding for a security upgrade to protect the church in terms of liability, that's a different pitch than just saying we need to spot bad guys. Okay, so pitch it as a ministry. When you do get funding, if you get funding, I highly recommend starting with training first. And pitch why you need training, because one, it's an investment in your people. It's an investment in your ministry. So the church is investing in furthering the gospel through safety. The skill sets that we build with our team, the fellowship that the training builds for our team is also furthering that ministry. So I highly recommend that whatever funding you're able to get, start with training. Once you have some initial training in, and you're able to kind of replicate that training amongst yourselves, then work on facility upgrades. But from the get-go, if you're able to get even just a little bit of funding, start with training. And again, you have to be able to prove that the church's money is building ministry. So anytime somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I thank you guys for watching our backs, make sure your church leadership is aware of that. Every time you put a Band-Aid on a boo-boo or an ice pack on a bumped head, note that file an incident report of some sort. And so when you go back to the church leadership and say, hey, we need additional funding, and they say, well, why? You can give them a stack of papers that said, these are all the incidents in which the safety team responded that you probably didn't know about because we handled it. And there were no complaints and no disturbances to the service because the safety ministry did what the safety ministry is supposed to do. So I've done that for years of paper incident reports. And then I can show them 2025, I had a stack an inch thick of incident reports that I was able to show my leadership and say, all right, this is why we need funding for training. This is where your funding is going. And when the proof is in the pudding, it's easier to ask for more pudding. If your church leadership are being a bit of a stick in the mud, for lack of a better term, or funding is stretched so thin they just can't spare it, start out on your own. I know that's not the ideal way of doing things, but if you put your own money into it and you show them how important this is to you, to your heart, to your team's hearts, if they start paying for their own training, and you're able to, again, go back and show the benefit of the training, the benefit of what you guys are putting your money for, that's another way of convincing your church leadership that, hey, there is value in what we're doing here. There is kingdom impact. There is value in what we're doing. Help us. Help us with this. Track new members that are coming that are joining your church because of the safety ministry, either because of the security provided or to be a part of the safety ministry. I've got a handful of my team members that have joined our church to be a part of our safety ministry. If you have something like that going on, that's a huge, huge block in your favor. And so highlight that with your church leaders. Communicate that with them. Like, yeah, this such and such family joined because they wanted to be a part of the safety ministry, or they saw our safety ministry on guard and they felt comfortable dropping their kids off because they knew somebody was watching them. Those are all trackable things that prove what you're doing has a ministry and kingdom impact. If you're desperate, and like I said, training could be expensive. And so if you get to a point where the training is too expensive, or you need training that is out of your budget or out of the individual budgets of your team, you can resort to fundraising. Especially if you're a smaller church in a smaller community, this is a great way, one, to introduce your church community and your community to your safety ministry. It's a great way to recruit. Have a barbecue and sell barbecue plates. If you have somebody that does training within your team, have a free CPR class and take donations to be able to support your safety ministry. But doing fundraisers within your church and bringing in your own money, that's always an option. It's a great option, and especially in small churches and small communities, that's just a great way to fellowship and to build community. Even a mid-sized church, it's a great way to introduce people to what you guys are doing, what you're wanting to accomplish. And when you introduce people to the group that is protecting them, think of all the appreciation events that the communities have for firefighters, police, EMS. You're doing the same type of thing in a microcosm within your church. That's who your safety ministry is. They're your first responders. And so let your community, your congregation know who you are, and give them the chance to show their appreciation, especially if you've been going for a little bit, a year, 2 years, and they see you, but they're not sure who you are or what you do. Man, make it public. Make it public what you guys do. All right, there is absolutely no need to be 100% covert. You're not CIA. You're not Black Ops. Let people know that you're there to protect them. All right, there's comfort in that, and like I've said, there's kingdom impact in that for you as a safety team member and for your congregation. And the fundraisers are a great way of doing that. Last but not least, this is a little bit of an underhanded way of doing it, but it is effective, is encourage your safety team members or encourage people that you know are in the congregation that support what you're doing, talk to them about when they tithe or when they give additional offerings to bookmark those tithes or offerings for the safety ministry. Your church as a 501c3, by law, if funds are donated and bookmarked, they have to go to whatever is bookmarked. And so if you have supporters within your church that really support your ministry, ask them one of their tithes or one of their offerings a year, will you donate this to specifically to the safety ministry? What that does is that does give you some immediate funding, but it also shows your church leadership there are people in this church that actually support this, and they're willing to support it financially. So if they're giving specifically to that, we should probably look into this. Again, it's a little bit of a backdoor way of accomplishing this, but I have talked with churches that church leaders are extremely stubborn and do not want to support the safety ministry at all. It's unfortunate, but it's there. It really is there. In fact, I had a class a few months back where one of the safety team members came up to me. He's like, Mike, what do I do? It's like my pastor is adamantly against us being armed in church, and he is adamantly against us being formalized at all as a safety ministry. What do I do about that? And I told him, I was like, man, have you tried pitching it as a ministry? He's like, yes. Like, we've tried pitching it as a ministry. We've tried to show the potential ministry and kingdom impact that this ministry can have. And he is just 100% anti-security or in safety. He doesn't believe that it's necessary. His mentality is God will protect us. And if that's fine. Faith is awesome. And you can argue all day that maybe you are the tools of protection that God has used that pastor's faith to put in place, right? Do you put faith in your seatbelt? Yeah, you put faith in your seatbelt. We can do arguments on that all day long. But if your pastor or your church leadership is just absolutely unwilling to budge, sometimes you have to take a backdoor approach because if God is truly putting this ministry on your heart, and not just your heart, but the hearts of the people in your team, the people that are wanting to build this with you, who are you to say that that's not what God wants for you? And who are you to just drop it because your pastor is not going to back it? I'm not saying go against your pastor. I'm saying sometimes when there's a will, there's a way, and pastors are people. We look to them as godly leaders because they are, but they are people, and they misread things and they misjudge things just like anybody else. And, this may be something that they're misreading or misjudging. It's totally possible. And so you may have to take it upon yourself to fundraise and to build this ministry on your own, and then be able to show him the fruits of your labor. And once they see the fruit of your labor, then maybe they'll back it. If not, at least you still have the fruits of your labor. But again, this is, I can talk all day on where we're at in our country and how important the ability to protect your congregation and your family is. If you're watching this, if you're reading our Substack, you're probably already in that camp that you know that America's a little bit different nowadays than it has been over the last 250 years. It's just different. And the institutions that we've put our trust in, they're different. And so we live in a society now where you kind of have to be able to protect yourself. You kind of have to be your own first responder. You have to be your own advocate. Try going to a doctor, and do you trust your doctor 100% to do the right thing? I don't. So you have to be your own advocate, and that means protecting yourself, training yourself, educating yourself, building skill sets and knowledge. That's what the safety ministry is it's building skill sets. It's building knowledge, not just to protect yourself, but to protect your congregation as well, and to protect your freedom to worship, your freedom to learn, your freedom to and peace to be spoken to by the Holy Spirit. All right. So if you're facing an uphill battle and getting funding or getting support for your safety ministry, listen, I get it. I get it. It's difficult. But if God is truly putting this on your heart to push this, man, don't let a little bit of resistance bother you. Right? James 1, consider it all joy to face trials of many kinds. Right? It's just a trial. And you have to be creative and you have to be faithful in overcoming and persevering through this trial. So get creative, find ways to support your own ministry, and hopefully at some point your church backs it. And if they don't, it's still your ministry, and it's the ministry of those on your team. And so take heart in that, continue to serve and to protect faithfully, because that's, for protectors like us, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to protect his people and give him the glory. So thanks again. Thanks for joining me. Again, please like, share, comment on whatever platform you're on that supports this podcast a whole lot. If you want to read more of our material, please go to Substack. It's 05safetytraining.substack.com. One of the best ways that you can support the content that we put out in this ministry is by becoming a paid subscriber on Substack. And we do have benefits. We do put out material that's specific to our paid subscribers. We put out templates. We put out training templates. We put out training exercises for our paid subscribers. So please consider supporting us by being a paid subscriber. Also, as I've mentioned before, we are on a Give, Send, Go campaign to try and raise funds for 05 to be able to buy force-on-force training equipment to make some of the best possible training for safety teams available at a affordable cost. Like I mentioned earlier, tactics and weapons training can get very, very expensive. And so we're trying to make this available and affordable for church safety and geared specifically for church safety ministries. And we can only do that through your support of our Give, Send, Go campaign. So the link to our Substack and the link to the Give, Send, Go campaign will be in the show notes. Please support us. Please share. Please like. Tell all your friends and family about us. But again, go out there and protect his people. Give him the glory. We'll see you next time.